Welcome to the Stronger Than Your Boyfriend podcast, a podcast for anyone into fitness,
especially for all of the stressed out folks.
We are Heather and Katie, owners of Barpath Fitness, here to help you sift through the bullshit and toxic misinformation that permeates the fitness industry. Today, we are not just talking about stress, we are actually talking about HRV, or heart rate variability. We're going to talk a little bit about what it is, why it's important, and why it's kind of big right now.
It's becoming the trend. Really is. Well, for, the wearable trend.
Yes, for
people are, I think most people who do fitness have some kind of wearable. And I think that people are seeing HRV and then we know it's an indicator of stress, but I don't think people actually realize what it is.
So we're going to break that down a little bit today. So let's just start with heart rate variability and what it is. It is the change or variability in the time intervals between your consecutive heartbeats.
Yes.
So if your heart rate is the number of heartbeats that happens per minute, heart rate variability is the fluctuation in the time between those adjacent heartbeats.
Yes.
So the oscillations of a healthy heart are complex and constantly changing. And so having this variability between your heartbeats allows your cardiovascular system to rapidly adjust to physical and psychological changes quickly. So it's pretty important, right? So it's getting a lot of attention because it's caused by two competing branches of your nervous system, the autonomic nervous system, the sympathetic and the parasympathetic, which we've talked about before, right? So when you have a high HRV, typically, now we'll talk about when to measure it and why you can't just go off like a one point in time, but when on average your HRV is higher, it typically means that your body is responsive to both sets, the parasympathetic and the sympathetic. So both sets of inputs are balanced.
Okay.
Yeah.
So meaning it responds to stress and the sympathetic nervous system activates, and then when it's not stressed, it comes back down, aka parasympathetic. So it's obviously a lot more complex than that, but
we'll get into it a little bit.
Yeah, it's even for you and I to understand and get into the weeds. I feel like we probably need a cardiologist to really get in here and break it down. But this is basic HRV relating
HRV
to
101.
This is HRV 101 relating to you, the fitness enthusiast.
Yeah.
So why is HRV important, or why is a higher HRV score important? And then I also want to ask, is it good for your HRV score to be low once in a while? But that's a question we can maybe talk about, just debate on. But so why do we need a higher HRV, or why do you want one? Well, basically it's just going to indicate that you have a better stress resilience. So like Heather was saying, or like you were saying, you're able to toggle back and forth between the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous system. Probably ideally getting into the parasympathetic mode more often because you don't want to be chronically stressed out, which can pretty much tank your HRV scores. And also a higher HRV means your cardiovascular system is healthy, which we want that. I mean, we've talked about, we're not talking about necessarily, training your heart, but that's the side effect of doing that. So that's why doing some cardio is important, because you do want your heart to be healthy. Heart is a muscle. And overall well-being, right? So a low, that's all of the good things with a higher HRV. A low HRV, chronically low, I should say.
Yes.
Because I do think that it's okay and it's good to push your body, like physically, and obviously that's going to stress out your body. So you might have a low HRV score once in a while. I think that's fine. I think that's kind of getting into the weeds with the wearables, where they rely so heavily on the score and they see the red and they're like, shit, because, the wearables try to gamify it. So they want you to do better and do better. But a chronically low HRV can be a sign of overtraining, which we don't want that.
Right.
We need that recovery on point. High stress. So this means more than just physical stress. You stress out at work and then you're pushing your body in the gym, and I don't know who your partner's stressing you out, whatever. We've talked about the stress bucket. Your stress bucket can only, you don't want to overfill it. You don't want it to be overflowing, because then it's really hard to recover from that. And then you will have to back off in a lot of areas. So chronically low, that's a thing. That's something to look out for. Evaluate your life and what's going on in your life if your HRV score is chronically low. And I think that where the technology is going to get better and better is with the HRV, as far as making it, a little bit more accurate with the wearables. Chronically low HRV can potentially predict a cardiovascular event too.
Yeah.
So I don't want to scare people with that. And I don't think for most younger, healthier, fit people, it's something that they really need to worry about. But you never know. You do hear cases of that.
Yeah,
so
that's true.
I would just pay attention to that. And, like I was saying, wearables aren't 100% accurate, but that's okay. You basically want to see trends over time, okay? And so HRV also, it's basically reflective of your body's ability to relax and its stress response, okay? So we need to figure out how to, push it safely or push it and then recover. So like we always talk about anyways. But this is just a way to objectively see, are you pushing it enough? And are you recovering enough? Or you're not pushing it that much? I wonder, what do you think? Do you think if you're not training intensely enough that your HRV score will be lower?
Yeah. So we'll kind of get into it a little bit. It's basically a peek into your nervous system.
Yeah.
Right? Because your nervous system is always working behind the scenes, regulating things.
Yeah.
Heart rate, digestion, breathing, all these things.
Right.
And basically you want both. So because it's a measure of variability, like if you think about, if you're doing cardio, your breath rate increases, your heart rate increases.
Right.
It's the ability to then stop and slow down your breathing and slow down your heart rate.
Yeah.
So then between beats, you're going to have this, this variability because like if your heart rate's high and you have a second and you can breathe and slow it down, that's your HRV, right? Like that measurement between heart rate.
Yeah.
So yes, it's going to sometimes be low and yes, it's sometimes going to be high. Consistently over time, you kind of want to increase it a bit, but it's not a comparable measurement. So like, it's kind of like weight.
Yeah.
Like if you were to say, oh, well, what's a healthy weight for a woman?
Yeah.
It depends, right?
Yeah.
It depends.
Right.
Same thing with HRV.
Yeah.
So you have to look at yours. You can't ever compare it to someone else.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It's your trends over time.
Yes.
So it's just like that.
That's a good point because I think people in this space always love to compare to others. So I cannot imagine trying to compare my HRV score. Just like, what's yours today?
Right, yeah.
Because also what's high, what score is high for someone might be low for someone else.
Exactly.
Especially a smaller person, I think it's just a lower objective number.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah.
So women are typically lower. I have some of the data that we'll talk about. But for instance, mine was super low for a while when I was like drinking more alcohol, not sleeping well.
Yeah.
I wasn't doing any breathing stuff. I'll talk about that later. But it was like 30s and 40s.
Yeah.
And now it gets up in the 100s consistently.
Yeah.
So it's, there's a huge range there. But that's, for me, that's average. But, the person I live with, they're at like
200.
Yeah. Like 180
and that's high for them.
is like their average.
Yeah.
So, and they're a bigger male person. So like, it's just different.
Yeah.
You can't compare.
Well, the bigger the body, the more
exactly
the heart is gonna work.
So let's talk about how it's measured.
Yeah, how is it measured? Well, okay, I do want to say though, just to note that there was a study, and we did find it that a chronically low HRV was one of the main cause for a cardiovascular event.
Oh, interesting.
So heart attack or stroke.
Yeah, that's
so
interesting.
I think this is something that people should pay attention to, and I do think that like the Apple Watches where people just wear them and they're not necessarily doing it for fitness.
Yeah.
I think that this will start to be integrated more and be at the forefront of kind of people's minds when they're looking at it. Because I think especially for, the older populations are getting into the technology. Right. So wearing that and having this be somewhat of a predictor can be game changer, I think. So.
Yeah, I mean, Whoop just updated. I don't know if you saw this because you don't wear a Whoop anymore, but they have 3 levels now.
To HRV?
To your Whoop and what it measures. They all measure HRV. And but some of them are doing like blood oxygen maybe. I don't remember. I have to look into it, but there's like, it gets really deep now.
That's good. That's cool because it's not measuring one score. I mean, you're measuring a lot of different factors. Yeah. And yes, if you have all negative factors at whatever it's measuring, then you're probably looking at a risk for something.
Yeah, it's pretty neat how deep they're going. They have to send you like a new watch if you want to do the upgraded one, which I haven't done yet, but I'm interested.
There is the other side of it, which is why
Oh, this is good to talk about.
which is why I stopped wearing the Whoop. I think that people rely too much on it, and then it stresses them the fuck out.
Yep.
So not that I got stressed, but I was like, why do I feel this way? And my score is telling me this. And it very well could have been like, maybe I'm just, me personally, mentally, I have adapted to just, like kicking my own body's ass. But my body's like, no, calm down. But I don't know. I think also like the sleep, I would get really pissed off when my REM sleep wasn't enough and my deep sleep. And I'm like, what is going on? And I would just get too pissed off, even though I'm, getting 8 hours of sleep, but this is low. So I don't know. It's more of I didn't want to be tied to a wearable.
Yeah.
I think that it's been a good practice to just listen to my body too.
Love that. Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing we say about weight, right? Like, if you're weighing yourself every day and like really like, oh my God, this number, you don't want to do that. And if you're I actually know a lot of people who have that experience with Whoop. And I always encourage them to do, like if you're going to get a wearable, if there's a trial, do the trial. Because I had a few friends that I recommended the Whoop and they got it and they were like, this is just too much data. Like it's actually stressing me out.
Yeah.
I'm getting like worried.
Right.
Like, it's just not helping.
Yeah. And if I don't know, if I just, when I was wearing the Whoop, I feel like it was probably a mix between low HRV days and high. Yeah. But if I had low HRV, I would stress myself the fuck out.
Really?
Like, if I saw low all the time, low recovery, I'd be like, well, what's happening?
Yeah.
But then on the other hand, if I'm feeling good and my HRV's low, and okay, it's like low for a month, do I just not work out for a month? So it's no.
There's actually like there's a podcast that Whoop did where they talked about HRV, and I believe that they mentioned. I cannot remember if it's an inverse or not relationship, but basically the relationship between your heart rate, your resting heart rate, I believe, and your HRV. There's a certain trend you look for that means you're ready to peak, actually.
Oh, okay,
and it is a lower
That's
HRV.
Cool. Yeah. Oh,
so like it's, but I cannot remember if the relationship is inverse or not. But
yeah, that's the thing. Most people are not
people are like, oh, it's low, that's bad.
Yeah,
not necessarily.
Right.
That just means you've trained to a specific point, and now here's how you should adjust.
Yeah, I think the sleep portion of the wearable. I know it's a little off track, but can really stress people out. Like, okay, I got this much sleep. No way I'm working out. And I'm like, okay. That's fine, but also, how do you feel? Do you feel like you can have a decent rest of your day and still get a workout in? Like, it's not that big of a deal. Yeah. And then, but sometimes it is. Sometimes you feel like total shit, and maybe your HRV's high. I don't know. I remember wearing the Whoop, and I would get like 4 hours of sleep, and my HRV was like 98% recovered. Yeah. And I was like, what? This doesn't make any sense.
I don't use it to inform the day.
Yeah.
I use it to look back at the last week / month.
But I do feel like people, and not you, and not even necessarily me, I'd probably just work out anyways, but I think people can start feeling what their score says versus listening to how they feel and then maybe matching it up with data trends over time with the wearable. Yeah. They're like, well, my recovery score is 28%. I just feel so shitty today. And that's what I want to avoid, especially with people who have sessions with us or they have workouts scheduled and they're just like, well, my HRV has just been low all week. Yeah. And then, okay, that can spark a conversation. Like, well, what are you doing? Are you sleeping? Are you eating enough, etc.? How's your recovery? It's a good conversation to have. But at the same time, maybe you're not doing enough. Yeah. Maybe you actually need to push it. Yes. And get your HRV up a little higher because there's a balance to everything. So
yeah, I actually see a big increase in my HRV when I do cardio.
Yeah,
like, pretty big. So
isn't that interesting? Yeah, because you're strengthening your heart. So
and I don't do it a lot.
Yeah.
So I think there's something to that.
I would be this is where I would be curious and why I do go back and forth about wanting to wear one or not. But it's hiking season. Yeah. Like that's pretty much the only cardio I do. And it's not even every week. So I wonder if my HRV would be higher generally over the summer when it's warm and it's hiking season. But anyways, so it can be fun to track or interesting, I should say, not necessarily fun, but don't let it take over your whole fitness routine and don't become your wearable because remember, wearables are not even close to 100% accurate. Right. So just keep that in mind. It's all about trends over time. Yeah. Okay. So how is HRV measured? So the most accurate way is through an EKG or ECG, like electrocardiogram, but who has access to that and who is going to be, walking around with those electrode whatever notes stuck to your chest.
Yeah.
But yeah, that would be the most accurate way, and you're not going to find a wearable that does that. I mean, maybe in the future, I don't know, AI is becoming a thing more and more. Maybe they'll find and it'll create the most accurate way as far as a wearable goes. So that's where we're talking about. Don't rely on the wearable because it doesn't have a built-in EKG for you. But that is the most accurate way. I think most wearables now do track HRV. One of the more accurate wearables I've seen are the Whoop and the Aura Ring.
Aura Ring, yeah.
I don't know why. I just have been reading a lot of the how they do it, their research, and all about that. I don't know why the Apple Watch wouldn't be as accurate, because they both, the Whoop and the Apple Watch you wear on your wrist. Maybe there's just some technology in there, but I think the Whoop and the Aura Ring were created specifically for fitness, whereas the Apple Watch is made for your phone. It's like a little phone on your wrist. Yeah. So it's not, that's just this, like a secondary feature of an Apple Watch or a wearable phone watch or whatever. So just keep that in mind. Smart watches use PPG, and I'm not going to say the full name because I don't want to sound stupid, but it's just how they measure it. And it detects blood flow changes in the vessels beneath the skin. So there aren't electrodes placed on the chest to measure the heart exactly, but they're basically, it's almost like a secondary measure. Okay. So they're measuring the blood flow output from your heart through your skin, not directly on the heart. So that's why they're not 100% accurate, right? So, I think that you can remember at the gym in Chicago when we did the competition with the chest strap.
My Zone.
Yeah, My Zone. Okay, so those can actually be, as far as measuring HRV goes, because you're wearing it around your chest, closer to your heart, they might be a little bit more accurate. So you can find a chest strap, I think.
Whoop has chest straps.
Do they?
Yeah, they have chest straps. They have, I think, a bicep strap. I feel like they have something. They have other wearables. Yeah. So if you can't wear it on your wrist or you want something different, you can put it in your sports bra or something.
I wonder if they did that because it's more accurate.
I don't know.
I don't know. I'm assuming. This is an assumption.
I've never worn one, so I'm not sure.
Yeah. I wish I would have paid more attention to this stuff when we were wearing those chest straps just to see. But I don't think HRV was a thing back then.
No, I think the technology was really based around heart rate and zones, the Orange Theory, the splat zone.
Yeah, you're burning this many calories.
Yeah, that was a huge thing for a while.
Yeah. But that would have been cool if the HRV was more of a trend.
I just feel like Whoop and Aura, because they are based so much around data, their proprietary algorithms are better.
Right, true.
Whereas the other stuff, they're really looking for general fitness stats.
Get your heart rate up, you're burning calories.
I am curious if Apple will try to be a little bit more.
I bet they will.
Or not. If they're just going to stay in their lane. Who knows?
I bet they will.
Yeah.
That's one of the companies that tries to do everything, so I'm sure they will. So, okay, here's the thing. If you don't wear any wearable and you want to start tracking your HRV, get a baseline measurement. And I think just don't worry about what the number says, which you shouldn't, but give your wearable enough time to track a trend to your own body and your own heart over, for, I would say, at least a month, just to get that baseline measurement to see, okay, my numbers by the end of the month are normalizing to around here. This is probably where a good HRV score is for me.
Yeah.
So that's where we're saying this is also independent and it's also personable, right? It totally depends on you. So I think give it some time to adapt to you, and then you can start tracking the trend. So be patient with the process. Yeah. So whatever wearable you choose, just give it time.
Yeah, circadian rhythm, core body temperature, metabolism, and your sleep cycle, they all contribute to your HRV. And it's best to measure it in 24-hour cycles. So the Whoop actually does it at night. They actually have a whole blog on why they take this measurement at night. So when you see that measurement in the morning, they're looking at a nighttime measurement. Not all wearables do the same thing.
Okay, the night before?
Just while you sleep. Yeah.
Oh, okay,
yeah,
cool.
The night before while you sleep.
Nice.
And so consistency in the higher number, right, is it typically means if your number is higher that you're more able to handle stress.
Yeah.
But again, it's not always better. It depends on when you take the measurement and when this is happening in real time. So like looking at one point throughout the day is not going to give you data, like we said, right? It has to be a collective trend over time.
Yeah.
HRV naturally goes down when you're exercising hard.
Yeah.
It's also impacted by alcohol, stress, fatigue, illness, hydration. It is one of the more sensitive metrics for our body. But again, overall, high overtime is great, and don't compare it to someone else.
Yeah.
But again, like we said earlier too, there are specific body types and people that just naturally have higher HRVs. So endurance athletes are going to naturally have a much higher HRV than a strength athlete, right? That's why when I do cardio, I feel like mine just like jumps up.
Yeah. But do you think with endurance athletes, that eventually it'll be lower because they're pushing their bodies in a cardio?
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it could if they're overtraining.
I think
it's all
it also
about
depends
recovery.
on, are they doing, how are they classifying endurance athlete? Are they classifying like long-term endurance? Are they including like HIIT people? Because HIIT, when you do HIIT, if you think about it, your heart rate changes. That's a lot of variability. So I would think that would also impact, not necessarily just endurance.
Yeah.
It also declines with age, and women on average have a lower one than men. So
Of course.
a lot of things to think about
They
there.
always have lower shit than men. Anywho.
Yes.
Lower and lesser than men.
All right, how do you improve HRV naturally?
How do you improve HRV? Okay. Well, I think the best thing to do is improve your sleep. That's going to improve your stress a lot. Granted, if you're waking up, if you're getting amazing sleep and you're waking up stressed out, you're still probably going to have a lower HRV. But I do think improving sleep is probably one of the best ways to improve your HRV score. You can probably speak to that.
Yeah, I think if you're waking up stressed, you're not going to have good sleep.
Yeah, exactly. It's a vicious cycle. So yes, obviously. So if you're getting good sleep, you're probably not super, super stressed out. So, okay, then kind of leads into the next point, manage your stress. But that's obviously easier said than done. That's just like telling a poor person to make more money. You know what I mean? It's like, it's just like that. I'm like, okay, well, how? Like, what are the ways? How do I do that? I think we're going to touch on the breathing in a minute. And I think that's probably one of the best ways to manage your stress. You want to train intensely, but not for too long and too often.
Right.
So manage your recovery. Make sure that you're eating enough to fuel, but still you can only eat enough calories if you're just pushing your body. You're too hard, I should say. There's only, you can eat and eat and eat and it's still not going to have that recovery. There's just the managing of the intensity in your training regardless. Right. But still, it will help. And eat good foods, right? Whole natural foods.
Totally.
So,
yeah. So I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, oh my God, Heather's going to talk about breath
breathing again.
Jesus. But here we go. It's fucking powerful.
Yeah, if it changed everything for you. So.
Yes. It is the most powerful tool when it comes to regulating your nervous system. And we talk about HRV, we're talking about regulating your nervous system.
Yeah.
Your heart and your breath are connected to your vagus nerve. Okay, your vagus nerve is very important. When you breathe slowly and deeply, especially on the exhale, you stimulate the parasympathetic nervous system. So the rest and digest side, we've talked about this before, that directly impacts slowing down your heart rate, which impacts your HRV. Now, we're not talking about casually taking a deep breath once in a while. We're talking about structured breath work and exercises. I'm not going to go into it, but we've talked about it in various episodes before, like box breathing.
Yeah.
The, in for 4, hold for 4, out for 4, hold for 4. Nadi Shodhana, alternate nostril breathing. There's all sorts of different breathing techniques. Google it. It's great.
Or listen. How many episodes have we talked about this now?
A lot.
You can just listen to our
I don't know if I've talked about the self-study that I did for my final yoga project. It's kind of cool.
I have briefly mention it.
A bunch of slides. But so basically I did the 200-hour yoga training from the end of January to the beginning of May. And the only thing, I was still strength training. It probably wasn't quite as intense because I was doing a lot of yoga.
Yeah.
But I was also doing breath work every day and meditation every day. And I was sleeping better. There were a lot of variables to this. But from that time, my HRV improved by 61%.
That's crazy. That's an insane number. That's not, even 10% would be good.
And this isn't with cardio.
This is 61.
This is breath work and meditation. 61% improvement in HRV. My heart rate, my resting heart rate also decreased by, I think, 9%. It dropped. Yeah.
That's great. Not even doing cardio, because generally how people think.
I also lost weight. Like there's a lot.
Wow.
Like 9 pounds. Yeah. There's a lot.
That's crazy. See, that's
It's
why we're
cool.
talking about the
Yeah.
breath work again.
Yeah.
So
it's super interesting. I mean, obviously there was a lot going on. I was less stressed. I was doing breath work. I was meditating. I was doing yoga. I was tracking. I was probably more concerned about what was going into my body.
Yeah.
I think that's a big thing too. Like I can't just say, oh, this is all because of breath work.
Right.
No, all of that practice led me to be more in tune with my body, which made me cut out alcohol quite a bit.
Yeah.
It made me eat a little bit better. Like it's the quality of my food was better, you know. So there's a lot there.
Yeah.
But
yeah, well, it's just, that's like
it all goes together.
with all the topics we talk about. It's not just one thing.
Yeah.
It's not one variable that you change and it's like, oh my God. So it's not just the breath work. It's all the things that follow. But I think it is pretty powerful.
Yeah.
So especially if you do it all of the time.
Yeah, it's all integrated.
Yeah.
So if you can integrate everything into a holistic wellness kind of plan for yourself, that's where you really start to see change.
Yeah.
It's not one thing. It's not that next diet. It's not that next program that's going to get you to the next level. It's the integration of all of these variables and holistic wellness that really matters.
Right. And it's not about perfection. Just trying to do as many of them as you can.
Yeah.
So we understand people are busy. So
Yes.
I wonder if I had the money, I would do a massage, get a massage every week.
Okay.
And I would track my HRV and see if it helped de-stress. I feel like that's one of the times, which doesn't happen often at all, but where I just feel so relaxed.
Compassionate touching.
Yeah, well, that's another thing, the touching, and I was gonna also say something about like being around people, not just people you live with, but you know, social engagements and how that can, I mean, relieve stress, but also it's one of the best predictors of longevity. I think.
Yeah,
is
I think
like
that
having a social circle.
Impacts your parasympathetic nervous system and your stress levels.
Yeah, but the compassionate touching, but also like you're breathing. You know, you're breathing during the massage as they're getting the tight spots, and it just feels so good. So you're just But
this sounds like a business expense to me.
Does it? Okay, an experiment.
Yeah, an experiment, right. So we can talk about it on the podcast.
Yeah, I love that for me.
Yeah,
but I think the most important thing to take away from this for everyone is just use it as a tool, your wearable, to track HRV as a tool. I should expand. And don't get bogged down by the daily numbers. Don't let the daily numbers, whether it's your sleep, whether it's your HRV, whether it's I don't know, whatever else it tracks nowadays. It's really cool that technology is tracking all of these metrics.
Yeah. But
it also can have you swing towards the opposite end where you're getting so stressed out. So just use it as a tool and try to continuously improve your HRV. I think that's a really good goal because that's going to tell you that you're in a healthy state. If you have a chronically higher HRV, consistently, I don't want to say chronically sounds bad, consistently higher HRV, your health is probably in a really good spot.
I think it's kind of a mirror for your emotions and thoughts too, right? Like if you're able to control your heart rate, like if you have a healthy ability to, raise and lower your heart rate quickly and respond to stress, you probably have that ability with your emotions and your thoughts. Yeah. So it's just a really powerful metric.
It is really cool. And your heart is the most, besides your brain, the most important muscle in your body. Is the brain a muscle? I don't think so.
I think it's just an organ.
A slab of meat in your head that controls everything.
Very crazy meat.
Yeah. But your heart is very important. So and I think that people should still learn to listen to their bodies, but also, integrate both. That's the cool thing about living in 2025. You can use the wearables, but also we have to kind of rein it in from all of the technology too. So there's a balance to everything.
Why not both?
Why not both?
It's the bisexual tagline.
The bisexual tagline of wearables.
That's how I live my
life.
All right.
Okay, why not both? Let's end on that.
I love it.
All right. Peace out.